guys, I got something I'm really interested to see today. Now, we watched that Asuka video a while back, and you guys were telling me a lot more about Joshi wrestling, the women's wrestling in Japan. I didn't realize, that they had their own thing going over there, that they weren't generally, at least used to be, from what you guys told me, part of the big promotions. They had their own promotions, and that, like the guys did in Japan, they tended to work really snug and everything. I just got interested in all of it from what you guys had said. So this is called the Joshi Wrestling Incidents. It's from Age of Wrestling channel. I'm not sure what those incidents would be outside
Japanese
of
women's wrestling,
the one we saw with Asuka,
has
but
long been considered as the gold
I'm really,
standard for women's wrestling.
really interested
Throughout
now.
the years, promotions like All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling, Gaia Japan, and modern Joshi promotions like Stardom and Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling have showcased everything that makes Joshi wrestling so special, like the amazing technical excellence, hard-hitting style,
Ooh, that one looks stiff,
death-defying moves, diverse wrestling styles, impeccable storytelling, immense dedication and discipline, as well as strong tradition.
Damn.
However, despite these things that have made Joshi
They
wrestling
do work,
the
don't
best
they?
in the world, there's a dark underbelly that
She got her,
belies the sport.
got her feet to the
Behind
side
the
just in
glitz
time.
and glamour of exhilarating matches and cute wrestlers, there's a shadow that has existed in Joshi wrestling for all these years.
Okay.
There have been many jaw-dropping controversies and contentious issues that have left an indelible mark on Japanese women's wrestling. Join us today as we take a journey
There's our
into the
girl
dark
Asuka.
side of Joshi
I love
wrestling, where
Asuka.
things sometimes get ugly. These are the Joshi wrestling incidents. Warning. This episode contains content that may be disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Now, I know
Kairi Sane is
you
one
guys
of the
have
best
issues
women
with
wrestlers in
some
the world
uploaders.
today.
I don't
She
remember
won
if this was
international
one of them or not,
recognition and acclaim
if
wrestling for
about the
WWE,
stories being
and there
accurate,
she
but
became a multi-time
this is what I
champion.
found
However,
anyway.
her road to the top wasn't as smooth. She used to wrestle for the Stardom promotion under the name Kairi Hojo, and that is where she made her name, becoming a multi-time world champion. Before all this though, in 2014, she faced off against Nan Takahashi, who is a respected Joshi legend, who has won multiple titles across several different promotions. Nan Takahashi was brought up in the old school Japanese way of wrestling, which was much more rough and more strict. Kairi was brought up
So
in
it's
the
not
new
as
school
bad now
train
as it
of
used to
thought,
be, I
which was
take it
more
they're saying,
relaxed and
'cause
prioritized the cute looks of the wrestlers.
Pretty
So
rough.
they faced off in this match, and Nani was working extremely stiff with Kairi, striking in the face over and over again. Even though Kairi did not strike Nane in the face with her moves, Kairi would strike so much in the face that by the end of the match, she had a cut on her cheek and her eye was so swollen that she couldn't open it up. After this brutal assault, she snapped more photos of her face, and she was bruised up very badly from all the brutal face strikes that she endured. This incident brought a lot of heat onto Nani, but not much could be done because she was in a high position. This led a lot of fans to speculate the motives behind Nani working extra stiff with Kairi, and a lot of people came to the conclusion that it was because of Kairi's good looks and growing popularity that Nani was jealous of.
She just got jealous? Now, I know you guys had told me too that, well, not told me, in the video about Asuka, it was kind of misleading in the title because it was like, oh, this big incident, and turns out that Asuka wanted to work that way. And I apologize for getting the wrestler's name that she was in there with, but he was actually reluctant. This sounds like it was really an ass beating,
so stiff with
a shoot. No?
I already made an in-depth video on this incident, so check it out if you haven't already. I won't get too deep into this incident, but it happened in Stardom between Ak Yasukawa and Yoshiko in 2015. Basically what happened was Yoshiko was apparently jealous of the younger Ak's growing popularity, and this caused them to have the most brutal shoot of all time in the ring, where Yoshiko absolutely obliterated Ak despite Ak trying to fight back.
Holy
Ak Yasukawa was
shit!
left with a broken cheekbone, fractured orbital bones, a broken nose, and a concussion, and she had to get surgery for these injuries.
That's a little bit
in the hospital. This incident even
extreme
caused
over
Ak to
some
retire from wrestling
jealousy over
altogether,
somebody getting
and caused
heat.
Yoshiko and other wrestlers from Stardom to get fired because of their involvement. That's how serious it was.
God damn. That was
one of the greatest women's wrestlers.
That's pathetic though. To stiff somebody like that, beat the shit out of somebody. If that was genuinely the only reason was because of her rising popularity. Holy shit.
She gained international fame in her time with WWE, where she became a champion. Before she got to WWE though, she made her name in Japan under the name Kana, with her wrestling career starting in 2004.
Okay, so this is what we learned in that other video.
Nan Takahashi and other wrestlers called Passion Red. For some reason, one night backstage, Kana and Nane got into an argument,
this is
and
something
fists
else?
were allegedly thrown. Passion Red then came to a sudden end. The falling out was famous enough that there were references to it throughout the Joshi world for months and years after. Allegedly, the fight between the two women was because Nane accused Asuka of being sloppy and too stiff in the ring, with Asuka even breaking the orbital bones of one of Nane's friends, Shu Shibutani. Asuka had a reputation for working an excessively shoot style and causing injuries. The anger that Asuka experienced from this incident and the bad press surrounding her led her to writing a manifesto in 2000.
Okay, so we did hear about the manifesto and everything. So it is just going to rehash some of that. This might even be, I didn't think to check, might be the same person that put that video together probably, right?
And no, not a manifesto of one of those mass shooters that
yeah, because that's what he said
but a professional
in that other video.
Manifesto. Asuka found herself largely disillusioned and disgusted by the Joshi scene, which she found overly stylized and more focused on how women looked rather than the product itself. Asuka basically
that
said
Asuka was
that several
working
wrestlers had
overly
no
stiff.
personalities,
That's
coupled
not
with
the first time in
negative
wrestling that
attitudes. So here
somebody's
you've got a hotshot Joshi wrestler that isn't
got their
very
ass beat for
respected
that.
and known for its stiff style,
Happened
calling for
many
emotion to
times
improve
over the years.
industry. Even though there was nothing wrong with her demands, she was in most folks' eyes a rookie overstepping her bounds, and similarly by extension bearing the industry by pointing out its very blatant flaws. This is a no-go in the Japanese society that values conformity, age, and seniority.
That's a no-go in the wrestling industry, though. At least,
essentially everybody
I've been away from it for so long, I never know how things may have changed. And I'm speaking over them because we had heard all this before in that other video. But that's always been a no-no, burying the industry like that.
The manifesto that she wrote, trying to improve the industry, effectively turned her into one of the biggest Joshi wrestlers of the modern era.
Gaia Girls?
This next entry is not necessarily an incident, but an inside peek into the behind-the-scenes of old-school Joshi training through the infamous
what I'd really
Gaia
like
Girls
to see.
documentary. The documentary shows the brutal day-to-day life that trainees endure in their quest for wrestling superstardom. The documentary showed that the women were battling each other for real, and that prospective wrestlers were routinely humiliated by their superiors. Japanese women's wrestlers Chigusa Nagayo and former NXT UK champion Meiko Satomura. The focus of this documentary shifts to a young trainee called Saika Takauchi who's preparing for her test. Saika is straight up bullied by her superiors. It's not only Saika going through this, as the trainer psychologically
this has nothing to do with professional wrestling. Oh, sorry, Afro Mike.
The film even shows two other new trainees drop out of the dojo and go home after witnessing all the...
That has nothing to do with training in any way. I'm confused. What do you think you gain out of just kicking the shit out of somebody?
Mental and physical abuse that was dished out in the dojo. The Gaia Girls documentary is absorbing, no question, but it is brutal and hard to watch at times.
Yeah, no doubt. I gotta admit though that I love the business. I would be fascinated to see that.
If you haven't already. I won't get too deep into it, but basically, early on in Io Shirai's stardom career, she was arrested along with her boyfriend Nosawa Rengai in 2012 for smuggling marijuana into Japan.
Oops.
She was facing 5 years in prison for this, and her career would have ultimately ended. But the story is not as straightforward as it seems. Io was actually coming into Japan from wrestling in Mexico, and while she was in Mexico, a fan gifted Io and her boyfriend 2 portraits which they brought back to Japan. Japanese customs found marijuana was hidden inside of these portraits, which led to their arrest. Io maintained her innocence and broke up with her boyfriend, but she had to spend a few weeks in jail. And after hearing their story, the public prosecutor's office decided not to press charges against her and Osawa. A few days after she was released from jail, a wrestler named Takuya Sugi made a confession where he revealed that he was behind planting the weed on Io and her boyfriend.
Oh shit!
Because he hated and had heat with her boyfriend. Luckily, this incident didn't affect Io so much, and she returned to stardom shortly after.
That's kind of fucked up right there. Because I was going to say, you never know if they were, they were smuggling it and that was the story they were going to use. But I guess we determined they actually were innocent in all of it. Oh shit! Damn.
Kagetsu was a prominent wrestler from the Stardom wrestling promotion. She was a multi-time champion and was a dynamic and charismatic figure in the world of Joshi wrestling. She was known for a distinctive look, exceptional in-ring skills, and captivating persona. In 2017, though, she had an incident with another wrestler called Tsukushi from the promotion Ice Ribbon, who was 19 years old at the time.
Especially, in general, Asians have that porcelain skin and everything, and makes them look, especially, when they're the younger women, makes them look so Cupid-dollish, and then you think about some of the heinous things they do.
At the time, it was a 7-year
just like it don't fit.
Starting to wrestle at age 12. Kagetsu,
Wow.
at that time a Stardom wrestler, went to an ice ribbon show in which Tsukushi was supposed to wrestle. Backstage, Tsukushi and Kagetsu got into an altercation and Tsukushi tried to stab Kagetsu but failed to do so. Kagetsu, however, did walk away with some injuries, but Tsukushi was subsequently arrested and pulled from the ice ribbon show.
Yeah.
The following day, Ice Ribbon held a press conference to announce the arrest and apologize for what happened. At a later date, Tsukushi apologized for the incident, and just a few months later, she was allowed back into Ice Ribbon.
Especially when you know what happened to Bruiser Brody. It's like, yeah, the knives backstage are just stabbings. No, and no good. God damn.
This entry is also to do with Kagetsu, as well as another wrestler called Hazuki, who joined Stardom in 2014 and was a very important wrestler for the promotion, winning several titles. Kagetsu was a big deal in Stardom, so much so that she was in charge of training all the women, and Hazuki was her best student, and then became her most trusted ally. In a sense, Hazuki, because of that, also had significant locker room power. Kagetsu's management style was compared to that of Bill Watts, meaning she was extremely
Oh, good old Bill DeMott. Yeah. Yeah, he's a lot of stories about his training methods.
abusive to her trainees. And that doesn't fly in today's world. Management even stepped in and told her to ease up, but she continued to do the same things. Most of the women in Stardom came to management to protest Kagetsu being in charge. A vote was held and Kagetsu was voted out as the head trainer and locker room boss. With her out of power, both Kagetsu and Hazuki lost interest in the company. This prompted Kagetsu to retire, as well as the impending restructuring of Stardom by their new owners Bushiroad, that saw wrestlers who were more conventionally attractive getting pushed more. All of this also prompted Hazuki to retire from pro wrestling as well. Hazuki famously exited from Stardom in a very bad way, linking up with Stardom's #1 enemy Yoshiko.
Boy, the drama surrounding the Joshi wrestling scene is just really deep, isn't it?
A few days before her retirement show. This was the same Yoshiko that beat Act Yasukawa senseless. Hazuki also was trashing Stardom online. After her final match, in her speech, she trashed Stardom even more, even going as far to say that she didn't want to retire like this and that she hates Stardom. Many people speculated that her retirement wasn't actually her decision, and she was forced to retire by Stardom because she had a secret lesbian relationship with Kagetsu, or that her family had ties to the Yakuza, which is the Japanese mafia, and this is very frowned upon in Japan. Hazuki eventually mended things with...
Unbelievable that, like I say, the fingers that are in the Joshi wrestling scene, that was probably some real bad phrasing, huh? The people that have influence in the Joshi wrestling scene.
Stardom and returned a few years later. And on the flip side, since Kagetsu's retirement, she has transitioned into a man, changing her name from Yukari to Yu.
Okay.
I made a video detailing everything that happened with Hana Kimura, so check that out if you haven't. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but basically, Hana Kimura was a young bright prospect in the Japanese wrestling scene, wrestling for the promotion Stardom, where she was a big deal. She was so popular, in fact, that she joined the Japanese reality TV show Terrace House, which was broadcast.
So obviously, you don't like hearing about anybody being pushed to this.
There was a scene in which fans found it distasteful, and so they sent a slew of online hate towards her, telling her to take her own life and much more. This affected her mental health greatly. Terrace House ignored her deteriorating mental state and actually painted her more as a villain, which caused the online hate to just
intensify even more.
A constant stream of nasty messages and caved into the hate by taking her own life at just 22 years old in 2020. 3 men were arrested for bullying her online and ended up getting fines for their actions, but the fines were nowhere near enough. To this day, her mother Kyoko Kimura continues to seek justice for Hana.
Oh, that's brutal. God damn. I tell you, being on the, well, I don't have to tell you guys this. I've had my Spaz Boys comedy channel since 2011. I've had a YouTube channel since 2007. And YouTube anyway, it's not as bad as it used to be with the vitriol, but you have to think twice. You have to really be able to have thick skin and be able to handle the dirtbags if you want to have any type of a presence nowadays. Because no matter what you're in, you got to have if you want to succeed, you got to have a online presence.
And she currently wrestles in Stardom, where she has become a multi-time champion.
What I'm trying to say is no matter what you want to become popular in, online presence has to come along with that, and so will all the scumbags.
The promotion. Her blend of charisma,
the trolls.
athleticism, and technical prowess, as well as her undeniable presence that draws attention the moment she steps into a ring,
Got a
have
cool
catapulted her into a standout
Excuse me.
performer and a fan favorite. However, the way in which she joined Stardom was very controversial and messy. Julia used to wrestle for a promotion called Ice Ribbon.
Oh,
She
couldn't say
announced
she
via
got a
Twitter
good
that
look.
she was leaving the company. Then, not so long after, she joined Stardom. But the problem is that she was still under contract with Ice Ribbon.
Whoops.
Ice Ribbon made sure to make a noise about this, as they said that she had not told them at all
Excuse
that
me.
she was going to sign for Stardom while being under contract. It turns out Julia was supposed to wrestle a few
a little
more dates
sticky.
for Ice Ribbon before leaving the company. This was very controversial in the Joshi world because people saw it as Stardom, the bigger promotion, bullying the smaller promotion, Ice Ribbon, by poaching their talent who are under contract. Stardom denied knowing that Julia was under contract and said that she in fact approached them first.
Yeah, because that would be, there'd be some lawsuits flying, at least, I don't know, Japanese law, but if that
Stardom
happened in
and Ice Ribbon
America.
eventually worked all of this out, but Julia joined Stardom much later than she had hoped.
No, it's not a big, stuff like that goes on all the time. Oh,
Plum
no.
Mariko was a Japanese women's wrestler who wrestled for the JWP Joshi Puroresu promotion. She was a technical wizard and submission magician. However, throughout her
Submission
career,
magician.
the wear and tear on her body took
Nice
a toll
phrase.
on her. In her later years, she was becoming very forgetful and would often have to go over the
Uh-oh.
match sequences she was wrestling in numerous times before actually performing. Mariko had suffered a number of concussions during her
Ooh, see, this is the kind of stuff that gets to me because, yeah, I'm living that. That's scary.
career. During her final days, it was clear she wasn't 100% healthy. Despite her forgetfulness, she continued to press on, and she competed in a match in 1997.
Oh, boy.
But during the course of this match, her opponent delivered a Liger bomb to her, and she was supposed to kick out, but she just laid on the mat, and the referee had no other choice to make the 3 count. After the match, Mariko was still motionless on the mat,
Oh,
and the crew
man,
immediately
that's so
realized she
sad.
was seriously hurt. She was rushed to a nearby hospital where she was in a coma, and a few hours later, she was pronounced dead at 29 years old.
29 years old, and they told me when they diagnosed me with post-concussion syndrome there, they said, the doctors said one of the things that's really unnerving about concussions is they affect everybody differently. Some people can have a bunch of them and lead relatively normal lives. Other people can get one and be affected by it for the rest of their lives and anything in between. Trust me, the other day I bumped my head. I was coming in the house and our van was pulled a little close to the garage. So it pushed me towards the garage where we have a light fixture, and I bumped my head against that light fixture. And it wasn't the bump, I don't think, but when I hit, your natural instinct is to snap your head away from what struck you, and that head snap gave me concussion symptoms. Because I've had so many concussions, it just happens.
It was determined that
I
Plum
was so
Mariko
sick
didn't
that
die
day.
from the Liger bomb she took in her last match, but a considerable amount of brain trauma throughout her career. Plum
Yeah.
Mariko was the first wrestler in Japan to die in the ring, and the second was another
That's
Joshi
sad.
wrestler called Emiko Kado. Emiko Kado was a young up-and-coming women's wrestler who wrestled for the promotion ASEAN and made a debut against Japanese women's wrestling legend Aya Kong in 1999.
man.
However, her wrestling career would only last a few months, as Emiko would go on to wrestle about 14 matches, losing every single one of them. Despite the
she was
losses, the
jobbing.
ASEAN promotion thought highly of her potential to one day be a star for them. And a few months after her debut, in her 15th professional match, she took a back suplex, hitting her head hard on the canvas. She remained unconscious, and the match stopped for medical personnel to attend to her. She was rushed to a nearby hospital where she received emergency surgery on her brain. She was in a coma for approximately 9 days before she died from her injuries, which was bleeding from her brain. She was just
brain
23
bleed,
years
yeah.
old at the time of her death, and she was the
Oh,
second
man.
wrestler in
This is
Japan to die from
depressing.
in-ring action, with the first being Plum Mariko 2 years earlier.
Damn. Cornette. What?
This next entry is kind of a bonus because it wasn't an
Corny
incident in Joshi wrestling, but an incident with a Joshi wrestler in Rio. Jim Cornette famously has not been a big fan of Rio since day one in AEW.
Oh,
He
okay.
often criticized
I
him
didn't
for
know
being
that.
less than 100 pounds and being pushed too hard in AEW. He also notably doesn't have much respect for Japanese women's wrestlers. He doesn't find Rio
That's
as a believable
corny.
wrestler, and he constantly berates Rio for it and anyone who supports her. He even went as far to say that Rio was only booked strong in AEW because Executive Vice President Kenny Omega has a Japanese schoolgirl fetish. Kenny Omega famously spoke out against all of this.
Wow.
All of Cornette's criticisms of Rio seemingly rallied.
See, Corny, with him, we've had conversations about him a lot. I love listening to him, and he knows the business inside and out. but he just goes so over the top sometimes. I don't know what he's saying here, if it's based in fact or not, but it's corny, so you always have to be wary.
His fan base to send abuse to Riho, with some even going as far to send her death threats. All of this online abuse caused Riho to deactivate her account, causing wrestling fans to blame Cornette for this incident. Cornette addressed all of this on his wrestling podcast, but he didn't apologize, and he even brought up Hana Kimura ending her life in a disparaging way in relation to Riho. Wrestling fans did not like this and hated on Cornette even more. Riho has still not returned to Twitter till this day. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please...
That was interesting. I would like to see that. As much as it's difficult to watch, I'd like to see that documentary that he referenced in here. That was some interesting stuff, though. But man, anytime I hear about that, whatever it is, wrestler, football player, anybody, talking about concussions and having to go over your match several times to get it to stick and everything, Tony Atlas was kind of notorious about forgetting spots too, and I can remember wrestling him, and of course, obviously he was older, he was done with his WWE career. We would go to the ref, and I would make the ref listen to us put our match together so the ref could help remind us where we were, because I couldn't remember my spots, or it was tough to remember my spots. So yeah, that hits hard.